This episode, I don't want you to tune out if this is not your thing, but we're going to be talking a lot about rap and rappers. And I'm telling you, regardless of whether you personally are into rap and hip hop or you think your students are, I'm telling you there's some things that we can use to start some real conversations and most importantly, start to transform our teaching. So welcome back to another episode. Let's get cracking. So welcome to the Hive, man. What honey is happening in the Hive today? Like, this is transform teaching, and I want to start with something that I know in my world for sure was a massive talking point. Whether it was or wasn't in your world, I appreciate, but I really wish it was a bigger talking point for more people, and that is the Super Bowl halftime show. As I said, you might not be into American sports, you might not be into American music, you might not be into American hip hop specifically, but Kendrick Lamar, who is a rapper from the US, has been arguably one of the top rappers in hip hop for the last 13 years, maybe, I'd say 14 years. And well known for being a great lyricist, great rapper, well known for also being very willing to stand up and say, I think I'm the best. Well known for also being willing to, as we saw last year, 2024, straight go back and forth with the guy who's like the biggest selling artist, Drake, and say, listen, we've had enough. Like, we don't think you're somebody that people should respect inside and outside of music, and I'm going to call you out on it. And they went through a whole back and forth. And some deep things were said, especially by Kendrick towards Drake, some deep allegations. And I say all of this to set up the fact that led to Kendrick Lamar's profile definitely rising. So one could argue, oh, has he just gone at the biggest guy, the most famous guy, so that way he can just raise his profile? Well, no, as far as he's concerned, what he's doing is values driven and principle driven. But also, it led to, because of his risen profile, him releasing an album and also the song that he released as part of that whole back and forth last year being so big that he actually won 5 Grammy Awards the other day. Say what you want about the Academy, but if other people win Grammy Awards, we tend to hold them in high regard. The man won 5 in one night. That's unparalleled. I was gonna say that's never happened in hip hop, and that's crazy for hip hop, but that doesn't happen in most genres. Like, you don't get somebody winning 5 Grammy Awards. So this brings me then to the Super Bowl halftime show. It was announced in September last year that he would be the person to do the Super Bowl halftime show, and obviously we're talking about legends have done this. Beyonce, Michael Jackson. Beyonce has done it, right? Anyway, huge artists have done this. Rihanna, Maroon 5, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg in recent years, Usher last year. Massive artists. It's a spectacle. That's what this thing is described as. Because let's be real, in America, I mean, why on earth you have this happening halfway through a football game? I will never understand. Oh, we're not here we're not here for this. We're here to see the two best teams hopefully win a trophy. Like, one of them win a trophy. But the point is, they have this thing, and it's often seen as a spectacle. Obviously, it's a cash grab. Obviously, it's, very American, revolves around the ability to drive commerce, make money. But I bring this up to say, whilst everybody watches the Super Bowl halftime show for the spectacle, oh my gosh, are they gonna fly in from the ceiling? Are they gonna, like swing from this part of the stage? Are they gonna have crazy transitions? And are they gonna be hanging upside down? And Kendrick Lamar put together a production very different. Why is this relevant to our students? Oftentimes, our students think that what's going on in other parts of the world is not always directly relevant to what's going on here in the UK. The whole performance revolved around this concept of the great American game. He had Samuel L. Jackson, the legendary actor, playing the role of Uncle Sam, which we know is a nickname for the United States government, the system, even, you could say. And basically, it was a whole narration from Samuel L. Jackson about and commentary about everything that Kendrick Lamar did during that performance to suggest that he was or wasn't playing the great American game. The actual stage was set up like a PlayStation controller, and he had 4 stages, and one was a triangle, one was a square, one was an X, one was a circle. For those of you that have ever seen a PlayStation controller, you know those are the 4 buttons on the right hand side of a PlayStation controller. And different things took place on those different stages throughout the performance. effectively what Kendrick Lamar's performance was about was the battle of being first and foremost an African American black man in America and representing that part of his identity, but also he was representing more broadly the issues of people who are marginalized, maybe due to class, economics, gender, sexuality, religion, etc., and how they are expected to play the game within that particular society. And it was deep because so many things were done that would allow us as people and therefore our students to think about the extent to which we continue to stay in the line and therefore uphold systems that oppress people, or where we have to start to say, hold on a second, what are we doing to contribute to social justice? Because we have students who I know, if you ask them if you think something is right or wrong, they will tell you what they think is right or wrong. And oftentimes what they think is wrong are the things that continue to exist and persist today, and what they think is right would be things that they see as alternatives. Yet we don't always empower them. And that's not just by saying they have to get involved in the political landscape. That's not just saying that they have to get involved in like different parts of, civic decision making, but at least equipping them to understand, where are they being told and expected to play a certain game? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, this performance was so deep because Kendrick Lamar had dancers in blue, red, and white, which of course you would assume is just representing the American flag. But if you understand what the American flag actually represents, like the red is supposed to represent like bravery and courage, and the blue is supposed to represent, if I'm not wrong, like justice and vigilance, and the white is supposed to be about like purity and stuff. Do you know throughout that whole, well, not the whole performance actually, the early parts of the performance, the red dancers would follow Kendrick, i.e. they were the ones that were brave enough and courageous enough to have his back as the marginalized person in the American society. The blue dancers were at times just trailing the red, almost like they were meant to be representing vigilance, but it almost felt like they were observing the red who are supporting Kendrick to say, you are the people in those marginalized communities who we need to just make sure are being kept in check, who we need to just make sure are staying in between the lines. So we're just going to be watching you, not watching what's going on, not watching whether the system's working for you, but watching you to make sure you're playing within the game. And in the white, they were just doing their own thing. They were dancing over on different sides of the stage, doing their own thing, representing those people who continue to maintain their ignorance. We cannot let our students maintain their ignorance anymore. It's not okay. We have to raise and nurture and equip our students to understand that it is important for them to contribute to social justice, regardless of what it is they want to do. You can be a rapper like Kendrick Lamar, whose last tour did over $100 million globally, and have all this money and all of this fame and all of this success, but still choose to go to the Super Bowl and say, you know what, I'm not even going to... 75% of the man's hit songs, he didn't perform. He only performed songs that aligned with the message that he wanted to give people that day, because he knows that is the highest watched TV program in the world. So I'm going to give you the things that align with the message that I want to give you today. Yeah? To suggest that your whole brand is going to revolve around the commentary, critique, and call, 3 C's, commentary, critique, and call for social justice is so powerful when you could go the complete opposite way. He also did something on the day which, whether you agree with him or not, he has these allegations towards Drake, as we know, and Drake's kind of chosen to take a route of filing a lawsuit against the record company that was promoting his song last year, but where he made these very deep allegations. And Kendrick Lamar said straight, like, I want to perform the song, but I know they love to sue. He just said, I'm doing it anyway. So I don't know what the ramifications of that are. I don't know if he gets sued for performing it at the Super Bowl or whatever, but he said, listen, I need to stand 10 toes down and do what I think is right. Our students need to appreciate their day-to-day decisions, whether they choose to stay in the lines or prioritize social justice. Prioritizing social justice is not a sacrifice of their own success and their own prosperity. Does it make things challenging? I agree. Will it create enemies at times? Of course, because those people who want to uphold the status quo, at times they might be against us. But can you really sleep at night knowing that you allow the system that has held back so many people just like you, communities just like yours, people in your own family, potentially friends of yours? Can you actually allow for a system that's done that for so long to continue to exist in the way it can? Or would you like to make a contribution towards the evolution of a system that will be better for people and planet, towards the development of a political landscape, decision making landscapes that will be better for people and planet? Because it's our students that are going to be the ones who are going to be able to make these changes in the long term. But if we don't start equipping them now, what happens? Kendrick Lamar demonstrated something to us that night, I should say. He demonstrated something that night. He said, I have to do it regardless. Do you get what I'm saying? The start of his performance, he said the revolution will be televised. You pick the right time, but the wrong guy. The revolution is going to happen regardless, and you're going to see it in front of your face. You pick the right time to have a performance like this, to have a spectacle. Why? Because we've just had a president come in that we need someone to come and perform to distract us from what's really going on. But I'm the wrong guy for that, because I'm not going to be distracting anybody. I'm going to let you know this is what's going on. So we need to be talking to our students about it. It's a deep performance. If you're a tutor, I won't lie, I think you should spend a couple tutor time, maybe potentially playing it with students. I'll be real. Especially if you can, I don't think you're allowed to swear in it anyway, so I'm pretty sure it's clean. But you play it with your students, break it down. What's going on? Do you get what I'm saying? What's this suggesting? How does that relate to the UK? Let's do it. Sociology teachers, run that. History teachers, run that. Do you get what I'm saying? Art teachers, drama teachers for sure, run that. Music teachers, run that. You could bring this into every subject as far as I'm concerned. So that's Kendrick and his Super Bowl halftime show. Let's move it on. Stormzy. I must admit, I've come into this video not having done enough research, but having read and watched a little bit about this, and it's enough for me to be able to talk about here and allow you to go and start conversation. But Stormzy has obviously recently announced this partnership with McDonald's. As you know, they've released the Stormzy meal, I believe they're calling it, or the Stormzy order, whatever they're calling it, and it's like however many chicken nuggets with fries or whatever he orders, apple pies, whatever it may be. I'm not really 100% sure what it is. Now, I'm sure there are many brands who are queuing up to be able to have a deal like this with Stormzy, because let's be real, even the way they've done the advert, it's literally showing if Stormzy has an order, people are going to be brainwashed into wanting to order that. I'm sure he did the same thing with Nando's. He's doing it now with McDonald's. The issue people are having, and rightly so, is that supposedly McDonald's as a brand has been linked to funding or at least representing many pro-Israel groups that are therefore pitting them as against the empowerment and freedom of those who are Palestinian as part of the conflict over in Gaza. Also, it is said that sorry, I just had a bit of mind blank there for a second. I was thinking about something else. Do I want to share that? Do I not want to share that? But anyway, also, it is said that at least one of the McDonald's franchises, so we understand there's thousands of those, but one of the McDonald's franchises was known to definitely be sending food to like the Israeli soldiers and families and things like that, and therefore just demonstrating their support to one side over another, because they didn't do the same for those in Palestine. And also it is said that Stormzy, he used to be quite vocal in his support for Palestine, but people are saying you now can't find any of those posts on his social media. So whether that was expected as part of this deal, they might have done it under the guise of you can't have any sort of political affiliations or things like that, or was it just straight plain it can't be anything to be related to Israel-Palestine? Who knows? But the point is, it begs the question, which is a fair question, of when do our values prevail, and when do our values, which we hope to become principles, become those that we're willing to stand on with every fibre in our body? If it is true that this deal has led to Stormzy having to almost become mute as it relates to the Israel-Palestine conflict, that he has chosen to do this simply because of money, if these things may or may not be true, I don't know, but if these things are true, it does beg the question of like, no matter how big that, we know McDonald's is a multi-billion pound company. I'm sure they're probably fast approaching some figures we can't even make sense of, and so we know that what they probably are willing to pay him is crazy, but do we have to do that? Is it fun? Sure it is. Is it cool? I'm sure it is. Is it good money? I'm sure it is. But when we're speaking to our students, it's worth helping them to appreciate that if you're willing to just go against your values and your principles for money, it's so easy for people to go against their values and principles as it relates to treating you well. Once you demonstrate you are willing to sacrifice your values and principles for a paycheck, for an opportunity, for supposed success, it becomes so easy for you to become manipulated. We have an activity we do in the classroom with students to help them to think about their values, help them to assess whether their values actually play out in practice or whether they just say this stuff or whether they actually live by it. And once they've done that, we then start to get them to think about, okay, so with those values in place, what would that look like in practice in a working environment for you? What would that look like in terms of your family dynamic? What would that look like in terms of your friendship dynamics? What would that look like in terms of your ability to contribute to certain causes? And we try and get them to really play out these different values in these different settings, because the truth is, it's all well and good you just saying, this is my value. And first of all, we get them to realize your values need to be verbs and not nouns. You can't just throw out random words and it doesn't mean anything. But more importantly, what will that look like in practice? I said work environment. What would that look like? How does that mean you're expected to be treated by your manager, by your teams? How will you treat others? What kind of culture do you want to be working in terms of the organization you work in, or the organization you build if you're going to be more entrepreneurial and enterprising? That we need to see what the value is going to play out as. What does that look like in terms of family? If your values in terms of family revolve around certain things, what does that look like in terms of how often you see them, how you spend time with them, how you give, how you show love, how you pour into one another, how you lead, how you serve within that family setting? What does that look like in terms of your friendship dynamics, like in terms of who you accept certain, support from, how you support your friends, like, how you speak to one another, how you encourage one another, how you hold one another accountable? What do those values look like in practice? If we're talking about giving to certain causes, like what are the causes you prioritize? How do you make sure that they are actually ethical? How do you make sure that they are staying true to what they say they're meant to be representing? How do you do all of this? Because if your values are really your values, then we need to be clear on what they look like in practice. So we need to be helping students to be guided through this. It's so critically important. Because as my co-founder Ishani always says, if you don't choose your values, someone's going to choose your values for you. And trust me, you don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. So we need students to start to make the decision today and start to think about in practice what them living by their values might look like. Which transitions me to my third point. Santan Dave, another rapper. I told you this was a heavy rap hip-hop kind of focused episode. Santan Dave, I've seen recently that the charity that has been set up in the name of his mum, who his mum also runs the charity, they've partnered with St. George's Hospital and they're giving away free kind of like care packs for people who are leaving the hospital on a monthly basis, just with different things from sanitary things to cleaning products to things that will make them feel more comfortable at home, etc. And because as far as they're concerned, like his mum I think has got a bit of a history working in either healthcare as well as cleaning, I believe as well, but definitely in the healthcare space, NHS. And so they're looking at like, how is this a way to be able to just give back, pay it forwards, take a bit of strain off the NHS potentially in terms of some of that stuff that they'd love to do in terms of aftercare but maybe don't have the resource to do, but similarly just to make those patients feel that little bit better and support their rehabilitation. But that's values driven. That's saying, look, I'm Santan Dave and I make multi-millions as a rapper, as a producer. He's even in the acting space a little bit. Like I know I make all this money through arts and entertainment, but what can I do to put that resource towards things that I see as important? That's values led. That's what it looks like in practice. Do you get what I'm saying? I just finished running a session with a group of young people, and this whole month we've been focusing on the concept of money and wealth building, and we've done everything to kind of think about like, why is it important for you to become more wealthy, build your riches, etc., but all in the context of what's the purpose for all of that though? When you have more access to money, when you're making more money, what are you doing with it? Who are you able to help? Who are you able to serve? Who are you able to open doors for? Who are you able to knock doors down for? Do you get what I'm saying? I had one young person sitting with me just now who was saying that they were struggling with the term, they were struggling with the idea, because I said, do you expect, this is my question, do you expect to produce more money as a result of your service? They were like, not necessarily. And I said, why is that? He said, because like, what if I want to volunteer? And I said, oh, I understand the challenge of the question. If I said, do you expect to produce more money as a result of you becoming more valuable, what would you say? They said, oh, yeah, definitely. I said, right, service is your choice. That's the challenge you're having. You're not sure about the word service because you think, but I want to be able to be of service without the focus on gain. I said, yes, as long as it's your choice. But nobody should ever be able to dictate to you whether it's your time to serve or if it's your time to be remunerated for your service. But more importantly, what we have to understand is, if you are saying that you do believe that you're worthy of making more money as a result of becoming more valuable, guess what else makes you worthy? When you have a worthy purpose for the money. When you know you're going to be able to put that to use in order to be able to benefit not only yourself, but hopefully to benefit others as well. To benefit people and planet, as we always say over here at Revolution Hive. So that's what it means to be values driven. That's what it takes to get young people to think in this way. We can have these conversations in the classroom, you know. We can have these conversations in the playground. We can have these conversations during the assemblies. We can have these conversations at whenever time. But we have to start to prime our students for thinking this way and for designing a life that allows them to do these things. Because it genuinely is possible. And I know you have a lot on your plate, teachers. I love you so deeply from the bottom of my heart. But it starts with us. So with that being said, this has been another episode of Transform Teaching. I'll see you next week.